Okay, let's get started on talking about the very scary news that we got. Probably going to be mostly just a little bit of a rant video, but I do want to say, starting off, I am going to remain hopeful on the future of the game. At the very least, I feel like the next year or so could be okay. It really just depends on the core player response. And I think I want to start out with the bad news, right? We'll talk about the bad news, right? Clearly, them cutting about half of the devs is what I'm hearing mostly. Something from a team of around 160 to 80. That's pretty bad, right? I believe that 80 devs can run the game, but with 160 and how the game launched, it's very scary to think, how quickly balance is going to come out and how quickly bug fixes are going to come out, considering how many issues there were with the full team. And it wasn't just... I believe that the idea is trimming the fat, right? But what it actually seems is like they just needed to get rid of people just in general. A lot of designers and very seasoned FGC members or people in higher design roles were fired, which is very questionable. Maybe that's the aspect that's scary, is like the people who they did lay off are people who are seemingly the people who kind of get the players the most and are a little more embedded in the scene and are extremely passionate, right? It looks really bad. Even if I don't think this is like a game killer, I think that this is horrible look for Riot, and I think that it's really unattractive for people who haven't already gotten to the game that are maybe considering it. Very unattractive look for the game right now. Another thing is that this just shows like a lack of faith in both the community and in the devs that that the product is worth putting a lot of people on. I understand that you need a lot more people to start up a project than to maintain a project. I think that they figure that they have the project mostly done and out, and now all they need are enough people to maintain it and tweak it here and there with fewer deadlines. It used to be like a race for deadlines, right? You have to go from not having a complete project to having one, and they probably already sank a lot of money into this project considering how long it's been. It's been what, like a 10-year project, something like 10 years in the works, but it's still pretty bad, I think. Because from the perspective of someone who's been playing and waiting for bugs to get fixed and seeing the sort of minute changes to balance and the avoidance of drastic changes in character strength, it's leaving me pretty scared about how updates are going to come out with a smaller team. But like I said, it's hard to really measure it, I feel like, because they are going from a state where they feel like we have to rush to get a project out to being a state where, okay, it's out, it's released, now let's see if we can maintain it. I think it also shows that they don't see enough money coming back from this, that they want to expand it more. They might expand it down the road, if they revisit it, see it as a profitable thing, or see that numbers grow, but it's pretty disheartening considering that Frosty Faustings had just happened. Like a month into the release. I think that's another bad thing, is the timing. Frosty Faustings just happened. People were really hyped for the game. People were really excited for the game. Like, I met a lot of people who were like genuinely excited to start after they saw it at Frosty Faustings. And, this kills all the hype. It just shows that what it felt like was a really hype moment for the game, a really historic first major for the game. It just didn't matter to the executives at Riot. It's really ugly. I think that almost all of the bad news is just like how much of a suck this is for the hype. And it's not that it's not a real thing. It's a real thing, right? It's just something that's hard to measure. Like, it's not something monetary. It's just like people being excited about the game and getting into the game and keeping the game alive is really important. But I also want to get into some of the good stuff. Not to say good, but more of like the hopeful things about this. So from what I've seen with a lot of other top players, like a lot of people are just going to keep playing, right? the game's not dead. They still want to roll out balance, and they still have a year worth of support for the game plan. They said they don't want to touch that. They want to keep the year of support for the game going. So I think a lot of like the top players, want to stay with the game. The game is fun. It's still a fun game. Definitely doesn't feel like a totally finished game. But I feel like at the very least, if we can be hopeful for a state of the game where it's mostly like fixed, bug free, and has decent balance, or at least is still fun for people to play, I think if that's the case, then even if they, sunset the game, like, we have a fun game to still play. People will still run it. We'll have tournaments for it, even if it has to go grassroots at some point, right? I mean, a lot of games have to go through that. I have a lot of experience playing games that are very dead. I think from the perspective of live service and, big tournaments. I played a lot of Exert and I played a lot of Blaze Blue after, their heyday. So my experience with fighting games it's a more personal one, right? It's about playing with people that I care about and having a hobby that we share and just putting in time and growing into something that's meaningful to me and my friends. So I can still see 2XKO at the very worst surviving in that way, as long as they have like a mostly finished game. Another thing is, like, if we think about this from the perspective of what Riot is trying to do, Riot is most likely not pulling the plug on it. This definitely looks really bad at first glance. But the idea that they are cutting the team down significantly seems like a business strategy, right? I think that I've seen quite a few people talk about that. It's that they don't want to pull the plug on the game, but they want to make it better financially in terms of like, oh, we're not getting the numbers we want back, so we're going to invest less money into it, but that means that it keeps going. I think this sort of strategy is really bad for getting new players into and attracted to the game, but I feel like for the core player base or people that are looking for a game like this, a game that has a lot of depth, a lot of like has a lot of interesting quirks that you just don't see in other fighting games, along with like the IP. I think a lot of people like that stuff. I think that the core player base is going to remain, and I think that we're still going to get a good game out of it. And I think that if everyone tries to, give up after this news, then I think the game will die, I think if people jump ship before they see how it turns out, or are just like mentally checked out from the game before we see how it progresses at all, I think that people are going to be missing out on a good thing, and it might just, it might just go away for everyone else. So I think that the best thing is to remain optimistic. Obviously, it's hard, right? It's difficult after some news like that. But I think that the best thing we can do is to remain optimistic about it and really just see how it goes for the next, few months to a year. We at least have a year of support for tournaments, There's already a lot of plans around 2XKO. This isn't a game killer. It just means that production of the game is going to be a lot slower. And people forget that, fighting games weren't always live service. They weren't always supported by their companies, right? A lot of fighting games started out being grassroots. But it is definitely a sour thing to feel when, this game felt like it had a long life ahead of it. It felt like it was something that could stand next to Tekken and stand next to Street Fighter. And it feels like that might be taken away. But we never really know. We still have a year. I have to keep reiterating that. We still have a year. We still have characters in the works. They still want to balance the game. It's just that a lot of people got laid off. And that feels so dirty. It really sucks. But I'm no expert. This might be my cope. But I think that after having a day to process the sort of shock of that update, I think that I will choose to stay hopeful, at least for now, right? Because I just don't know what the future is going to be like. I think it's easy to just assume it's going to be bad, but if that's the case, then I'm kind of accepting the fact that the fighting game that I've waited for more than any fighting game ever in my life is just kind of cooked, and I don't think I want to believe that without a little bit more proof that it is totally cooked, right? So I'd say, if you want this game to succeed, if you want this game to live, probably don't doom, as much as like other people are. And if you are, try and think about it as analytically as you can, right? From every aspect. It's definitely shocking news, and it immediately put me in a really sour mood. But I think that if you think about it pretty logically, I think that this doesn't mean the game is dead. I think that this game is just not guaranteed to succeed anymore. But TOs are out there putting in hard work, keeping games alive all the time. If you keep playing, keep getting your friends into it, I'm sure it's a game that at the very least, if you like it, you'll still have a reason to play it. And I don't know. Realistically, I just don't think that it's dead. I think this is just some bad news, and it's just not going to be as good as we thought it was, because in some ways we were really eating good, but you never know. I'd say that 2XKO is going to be fine. Maybe not amazing, not as good as we wanted, but I don't think it's going to be bad or dead within a year. I don't think that's going to be the case. I think it will be fine. So, if you needed someone to help you cope, to help you delude yourself that it's not dead, that's me. Okay? Just listen to this guy. Be like, yeah, this guy knows. This guy on the internet, on YouTube, he definitely knows what he's talking about. He definitely knows that 2XKO is fine. This might be the smartest guy I've ever heard. He told me 2XKO is okay. I guess. So, thanks for listening to the little talk. I just want to get this out there and, just tell you, if you have fun investing time into something like 2XKO, just keep doing it. Wait until it dies, and then if it's dead, it's dead. But I think for now, it's too early to tell. And we should just kind of, if you want the game to succeed, just keep playing it, keep having fun, and keep getting friends into it, Alright. Bye-bye.